Hello and welcome to another episode of the New Media Tech Show. This week I'm going to talk a little bit about the X32 that I use for audio mixing and some of the remote features that it has that makes it easy for us to, or easy for me in particular if I'm doing a show by myself without anybody, to be able to remote control it. Now I'm going to not go through the X32 in great detail itself. I'm going to talk about the remote stuff this week because I'm going to go through the X32 in more detail as an overview and in a future show. And on a side note, I'm also developing a video series on using the X32, setting it up, etc. as well. And it'll be a lot more in depth than all this, so it'll be able to go into more detail if you actually have an X32. However, this is more of an informational week. I want to show you some of the remote capabilities of the X32, and it's just getting started. Let me put it that way as well. There's a lot more for it. I'm sure to come. I do not see an Android app for it yet, but I know they're working on one. And the iPad app that's fairly recently released, the newest version of it, is pretty full-featured as well. But I'm going to show it to you on both an iPad, an iPhone, and also on the computer at the same time. So first of all, I'm going to go to the iPad, and I'm going to use the camera on the iPad. I have a camera over my head, and I have an also on the Apple TV that I talked about before, which looks a little bit better. However, the delay that we have for the view that's through the Apple TV is actually a little bit slow and kind of weird if you're watching it on screen. And actually, if you go, let me go to that. This is the display, and you'll see that it's delayed probably by a second, almost a second, from me talking, because you see the two that are unmuted at the bottom, which is 2 and 4, is me. And you see the delay of me talking to it stopping. So I'm probably going to bounce around between these two, and I'm going to give you the overhead view first, and then we maybe look at a little more detail on the actual display itself from the Apple TV. So let me go ahead and hop over to the app, and what you're going to see right here is the main screen when you are in home. So I'm in home, and what you see at the top is groups of 8. Let me move this over here. We have groups of 8. So 1 through 8, 9 through 16, 17 through 24, and 25 through 32. So this is a 32 input channel board. Actually, it does a little more than 32, but it's 32 for the way they describe it, because you have your aux inputs too. And then you have your auxes, your effects, your 16 buses in your matrix, and then it's also a DCA board. If you're familiar with VCAs, DCAs are digitally controlled versus voltage controlled, so it's the same type of thing. It doesn't really have a subgroup per se. That's the buses. So buses kind of fall into your subgroup. And the way you pick which one you want is you touch them, and you see everything changes as I go across. And I don't have anything on my second side of the board at the moment doing anything. I do have some things up here that's like the computer playback and stuff like that. It's on a hidden layer. It's not hidden, it's just on layer 2 that's controlled through the DCA, so it's real easy and quick to get to. It's within arm's reach. There's a couple little tricks there for that kind of thing. So this is what you're seeing about the different, and it really is responsive. If I go out to the board and I watch as I do this, you'll see the fader on the board go up and down. Down at the bottom are mutes, and you can be safe, and you can undo the mute enable, so you cannot by accident do anything with that. But I'm going to leave that on, and you'll be able to tell that I muted that just by hitting the button. This right here is the name. It's the same thing that's on the channel strip. If you were looking at the X32, you would see a yellow box and it says mic in there, and that's me. So if you want to change the panning, like this is the panning right here, you can just take your finger and you can pan from side to side just like that. And if you want more detail about the channel in general, you can hit the channel and you move to the detail part at the top. And right here you can do all your changes, your physical input sources, your phantom power, your reverse, if you're half phased, if you have stereo channels, you want to link them together. You can actually do delays on each individual channel in the X32, which is why we no longer have to use the Behringer Shark to fix the audio-video discrepancy in Skype. We can do it right here on the channel directly. And you also have your low cut, and then you can have your insert, and you have your mono center, stuff like that. We can come over here to the gate, and you see as I stop talking, the gate will come active right here. And you may even be able to hear it. I can hear it in my ears. I'm not sure if you can hear it on there, but here's all your threshold and your range, etc., down through here. Then you have your compressor, and right now the compressors are turned off, and it's something we're going to cover in a future episode of a better way to compress groups of microphones. Me being an audio background, I always put compression on each individual channel, but I ended up finding that was not the good thing to do when you're in a room full of talking heads. There's actually a better way to do it, and we will talk about that better way in a future episode. So you will notice no dynamics are turned on. However, if I did turn it on, you would see it's already starting to work on me, and it's obviously not adjusted properly because you just lost my voice. So I'll turn that back off. And you have EQs. And you can see I've dropped down. This is the low cut gone. That was done back here on the config and preamp. And I can actually turn that off right here if I wanted to. So that turns off the low cut. And that turns it back on. And then you also can turn off the EQs just like that. Or turn that back on. All right, and then you can see you have it's a 4-band flexible EQ. So you can do that with all 4 bands. Then here's my sends. This is one way to do sends. This is not the way that I do the sends, but this is how you can go in and configure your send levels. So I can come in here and adjust like my in-ears are right here, 5 and 6, and I can adjust myself. I'm going away and going away, and now I'm back up again for that microphone. And then we come back here, and this is the naming. This is where you set the color and what it's called. And you can actually add pictures there if you want to as well. And there's some pre-done things in here you can pick as well. So I'm not going to change that necessarily. So let's go back to home, and you see we're back where we were before with this. Let's go look at the effects. Now this board has 8 built-in effects, and you can see all 8 of them right here, what they are. And I'm not really using any effects at the current time because I'm not really doing music. This is all talking head type things. So you won't see any input on any of the effects at this point. But there are 8 effects that you can set up as insert points or just return them back right into the board as an audio in as well. All right, the next thing we have is scenes. And we do have scenes in this board. But the way it kind of works is you pick the one you want and it sits here. And to make it active, you basically drag it over and it goes active. So there's not really much I can show you with that. Then we have our meters. This is the in and out meters. So you can see we have our inputs right here. We have our aux sends and our aux returns. Yeah, you notice I have no aux returns. Then over here we have the monitor output and the AES output. We use the AES EBU and goes into the ATEM, and which then goes into the recorder for us to record our audio. And then down here at the bottom, you have the other 16 outputs. This board has a 16 output, 32 input on the board itself. And we also have our P16 Ultranet, which is for like in your monitors on stage if you have things like that. Now again, in here we're not using that. We're actually using our aux out and going into a microphone or a headphone amplifier to do that. In addition to that, there is also the digital snake, which is not really represented in here very well. So let's come back over to the very left, and this is our channel, and this is kind of where I generally sit, especially when I'm doing stuff with music. And you see we have all 32 channels. You have the gain reduction right here and gain reduction right here. So this is your gate. You see all these are closed because of the gate. When I stop talking, you see these 4 right here. The gate will start to turn on. There, the gate's turned on. And this is the compression. Now, right now, the only thing that has any active compression on it is channel number 11. And channel number 11 is actually the Skype that's still running in the background with the pre-recorded shows. And let's go over here to the mix bus. And here's where I'm doing, wow, that's really needs to be adjusted, doesn't it? You see the gain reduction right here based in mix bus, and that's because the vocal mics are going into mix bus 7 and 8, and it should not be doing that much gain reduction. That's definitely an issue that needs to be looked at. So we'll have to look at that a little bit later. So you see your mix 16 mix buses, and then here is your six matrix outs. And we do use matrix out here pretty heavily, and I'll go through and I'll show you how I use that in here as well. And then we have our aux. So right now, like I said, I'm not using any aux sends or returns. Well, that's actually not true. I am using aux sends. That is true. I am using aux sends to go to Skype. So that's how I'm getting out to Skype, is through the aux sends. The aux returns, I do have some in here, and they are actually used for the computer returns if I ever need to do playback through the computer. Okay, so let's go out of that. And it also has a built-in recorder. I can start and stop the recorder remotely. Basically, it writes right to the USB drive. There's a USB slot right on top. You stick that USB in there and you can hit record. And then we go to the alternate, which is where you can configure all your alternate information. And then we go to our setup information, which is where you can change all the different options. You can see right here I have my IP address, where I'm connecting to, and you can work offline, things like that as well. So that's a quick overview of what is in the iPad app for the X32. And you can see I can pretty much do everything in here. There is one thing I can't do. Actually, let me show you this. Let me pick one of these. And then I'm going to do sends on faders. And what you're going to see is I can say how I'm configured output to my 16 sends. So if I want to see like 5 and 6 is my in-ears. So they're in-ear left right here, it tells you in-ear left. And I can see what's going out to that particular bus. And it's just sends on faders. Now on the actual physical board, you can do sends on faders for the channel and say how it goes out to each bus, or you can click on sends on faders on the bus and tell you what channels go to. It works both directions, where it doesn't work both directions on here. The one thing that does not work on here, and I hope they fix this soon, because this is something that's a limitation for me, especially with the way I do my in-ears, is I can't adjust a pan on linked sends. So let's say, for example, my in-ears, I want to send this particular channel to one side and the other one to the other side. I can't really do that. I don't have a fade option, where you see right here, I have the fade left and right, but that's going to affect the fade left and right for the main output, not for what's going to my stereo send. That's a limitation that's out there, but I'm sure they're going to fix this ultimately, because I can't be the first person who wanted to do this. Now what I want to do is I want to go back to home and show you how I'm doing the matrix. So here's the matrix output. And what you will notice is these first two are muted. And that is because these first two out of the matrix are actually going to the speakers that are we use for mixing music. And I don't want to be able to hear that in the studio where I am, or if I'm in front of the computer recording, I don't want to be able to hear it there either. So these are muted. In fact, if I unmute them, you see it starts feeding back because it's not too far away from me. So then I have the program out and I have the record out. So what this is program out is what is going to the PC for audio, for us to be able to record. And then the record left and right is what's going out the AES bus to the ATEM, so it can be recorded, the audio can be recorded. And you see they're all pretty much the same level output. And you can see I'm outputting a lot more of that to the ATEM. Now, I'm not quite sure what happens in the ATEM, or if it's the ATEM or if it's the Blackmagic recorder, but one of them definitely requires more audio than everything else does. So that's just a description right there of how we're using the matrix. Now over here on the right, you have your main center, which we're not using main center for anything. And then you have your main left and right. And this is down because we're not really using it with the way we're doing the matrix out right here. That basically is controlling what would go into the headphones, and the headphones are done different paths, so it's not really being used for anything at this point. All right, so that's the iPad app. What I'm going to do now is I want to go back to, let me turn off the iPad from broadcasting. And I'm going to turn the computer on to broadcast. And I'm going to change my screen. Put this over here. I'm going to change my screen now so that it's easier to see. That probably is good. Let's hide. All right, so now you're seeing my screen, and I'm going to hide the ATEM control. And I'm going to bring up the X control. And so this is it looks the same on the PC as it does on the Mac. In fact, the Mac version just recently came out, much more recently than the PC version. The PC version's been out for a while because I've had to run Windows on this Mac to actually control it. But what you're going to see is a very similar interface to what we had on the iPad, just looks a little bit more like the actual console itself. In fact, if you go look at the console screen, the control screen, you're going to see these same buttons as right here, and you're going to see what a screen looks just like this. I mean, literally just like this. It's looks just like it. And then down here you have the fader. So when I go through the actual console, you'll be able to see this. But if you hit home, it's the same thing as hitting home on the other one. You see very similar screens as before. And as I select the channel, you'll see that the channel information changes. And let's go look at, this is the channel I'm talking into right now. And you see me coming up in my gate. And it gets quiet as the gate closes on me. And I have a very slow gate. On the right-hand side here, you can see what buses I'm sending to. And also, if they were stereo, they would be, and I wanted to set it to the left more. So if I wanted to set this over, I'm now sending to the stereo bus of 1 and 2, more to 1 because I'm going to the left, but I'm going to put it back. I'm not really using it for anything right now. It's not hurting anything. And you have dynamics. You can see I turned the compressor off. Again, I can turn the compressor on and I get really quiet like this. So we'll turn that back off. And then your out level, I'm going hard left. And the reason I'm going hard left is I'm going hard right on this microphone. This allows me in post to pick the better sounding microphone. Or if I have an issue with one, like when I was doing this a few weeks back, I had a problem with a cable and the lav mic was clicking and popping, and I could just turn it off completely and not have to worry about the bad audio. It just gives me a better choice. I typically mix them together to get the best audio sound that I can. So up here we have config, and you can see you pick the source. Here's your low cut. If you want to stereo link them, your 48 volts and your inverse. So you can also pick your point of insert, and here's your delay. So the minimum you can do is 0.3 feet or 0.1 meters, which is 0.3 milliseconds. That must cover, I think of as it covers the delay itself in the console. And we come down here and you can see where your inserts are, and you can actually move your inserts around, and here you see the inserts that are available to you. So we come over to the gate, and right now the gate is turned on, and if I stop talking, you see the gate go down. And if you're, I don't know about you, but I can hear it in my ears, the gate closing. And you see your options here, and you can actually do a filter, a frequency filter on what controls the gate. And that's something you don't see a lot in a lot of consoles, especially analog consoles. And we go over here to the dynamics, and as you saw earlier, I had turned off, and I can turn it on just as easy right here by clicking the active, and all my adjustments are right here. And you will also notice there's a frequency here. Now, it is not a multi-band compressor, it's just a band compressor. So, and you can also key it off of other channels as well. So I've never actually had to do that, and I'm not quite sure the instance where I would do it off another channel. Well, actually, you know, I had that before. It's done differently. It's for ducking, so I had done something similar to that before, but never based on a frequency necessarily and another source. But you can see you can change your type as well. Very flexible. And then we get into the EQ, and you see on this channel the EQ is actually turned off. Low cut is turned on, but EQ is turned off. This is the lav mic that I'm on right now. If I come over and look at the dynamic mic, the Heil, you see that's what we have set up as right now. And then we have the same thing with sends. as we had on the iPad, and we can adjust each one individually. You can adjust here, is it post fader or pre fader, and you can see these are linked because I have set up a stereo sends. And then we have the main, which is where you can define your left, right, or your mono, and we got running in left, right, and mono mode. You can run left, center, right if you want as well. You can adjust how much do you put into mono, and here's your pan right here. Now the one thing that is not in here is the, I can't do it on here maybe. Well, I was going to try to show you on the console, if you hold down the select and hit utility, it's where you can change the channel name. I believe in here, it does the same thing. So if you double click on the name in here, it brings it up, what channel, what color, and you can pick your icon. You can see there's a bunch of icons in here that you can pick from, drums or whatever. You don't have to pick anything if you don't want, but say you do pick something just like that, and it does that. I am not going to do that necessarily. I'm going to turn the icon off, and on the console it'll actually show you a name, a small name in the image, not just the image. And here's some quick ones you can pick from if you want to use, you know, different names and stuff like that as well. I'm just going to leave it blank, and you'll see all that stuff on the console as well. So in here you see everything you would see on the console. When we get through the console in detail, you're going to see all this stuff show up again. But you have mute groups. You also have all your effect controls, and you also have effects. So here you see the effects button, and this is the 4 effects or the 8 effects that we saw in the iPad. And I have nothing going to them right now. I'm not using any of the effects at this point. You can set up your monitor, and the monitor right now is currently muted in the other room because it would cause feedback. And then you have the recorder that I showed you before, and if you have a USB stick in there, you can basically just hit record and it'll start recording. And in the config, what you can do is you can set up what you want to be left and right for that. So right here you see I can pick any of my mix buses, my left and right, anything in matrix and direct out or the monitor output. I can just turn it off, and I can also tell you where I want to tap into it, pre-EQ, post-EQ. So if you have a 2-track recording and you want to be no effects, it would all be pre-EQ. And you can see you can set all this stuff up. Playback mode, you can actually play back music from here too. I've never actually had to do that. I've always played things off an iPad. It's just easier for me. But I use this to record all the time. And it works awesome. It's very quick to set up and use. You can set up your mute groups right here. You basically go into mute group mode. You pick your mute group that you want, and you can go across now and start selecting what you want in each mute group, just like that. And then when you're done, you just turn off mute group, and now mute group 1 is going to mute those items by just turning it on. So let me go turn that off because I don't want to forget that I did that. Let me uncheck these. All right. And you have your library right here, which is basically how you can store each of your channel settings that you want. You can do this from the iPad as well. And the other thing you can do from the iPad is your scene control that I mentioned. And right now I don't really have anything in here as far as scenes go, but you have your MIDI control. Here's your parameter safe. Oh, I'm not going to be able to show that. All right, so I can't show them. That's a bug. I need to report that one. Parameter safe, and see if I can do channel safe without crashing. All right, it didn't crash. Basically, parameter safe is very similar to this. You can say that in my configuration, when I restore a scene, I do not want to affect these channels, or these returns, or these buses, or this matrix group. And param safe works very similar, where it says what parameters you do not want to recall. One of the things whenever you are working on scenes, let me go back to scenes here, is you can specify on the right over here also what you don't want to do for each scene. So depending on what you're doing, you could say, I don't want to do anything with output patching or preamps. They're fine where they are when I recall my scene. So you can do some of that from here. You can do some of it from param safe and channel safe, and you just kind of work on them all together. And it's weird that it's not pulling back all the right information because it crashed. But let me go in here. I'm going to do this. So this is one of the things you do. Let's go to setup. And oh, it's not really connected right now. That's why. Let me go back and reconnect it. Going to connect, and I'm going to say I want to take the console to the PC, and through the magic of editing, this is going to go really fast. It generally takes like 2 minutes to do this, so I'm going to edit this out for you. All right, so there we're back connected again, and you're starting to see the audio levels again. I started realizing that I wasn't getting audio levels, and the names that were here weren't the right names either. All right, so there we're back. So I pretty much went through everything. Here's the routing that I didn't really go through, and this allows you to specify your different inputs. And you see I'm basically saying 1 through 8, 9 through 16, 17. So I'm basically saying all the physicals are the physical faders as well, and then aux in. And you can adjust all this. In fact, if you see the AES 50s here, this is all for the remote snakes and everything. So you can see all that stuff is in there. And you can pretty much arrange it any way that you want. You see the analog out right here, and you can come in and you configure. There's 16 analog outs on the back. You can configure what goes to each one. And in this case, I'm pretty much like output 1. This is my mix bus 1, 2, and it's going to go down the same line like that. I don't know where I actually have the physical outs. There's matrix 4. So you see I have them configured different places as well. And then there's your aux out, and there are 6 aux out that you can configure. The thing to remember about the aux out is these last 2 are the same. No, not the same. That's for input. For input on the back of the board, there is 2 RCA inputs for line level, and they are the same as aux 5 and 6 on input. So you can't have a 5 and 6 1/4 inch and a 5 and 6 for the RCA. Here's the P16 card. You can define this. This goes to your remote in-ears. And then you have the actual card out, which is the same thing as the home we had. So you can define output, what goes to where. And in this case, I'm not really using that, so it sets the default 1 through 32. And then you have your 2 AES ports, and you can define what those output as well. And that is pretty much it for the PC version. Now let me see if I can bring up the other part. There's an iPhone app too, and I don't really use it that much, so let me see if I can bring it up. Let me see if I can find it first through all the mess I have in here. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get back into the ATEM here really quick and minimize this. And while I'm switching over, I'm going to let you look at me again. Push this out of the way. And let me see if I can zoom this in. Yep, that'll work. Okay, this is the iPad app for the X32, and this is actually designed for like being on stage. So it can't do a lot to the front, or what I would consider a front of house mix, or the main mix. But what it controls is like your ears. So what you see here are the different items that you can control. And if I turn them sideways, let me turn it sideways. Okay, so I turn it sideways and you can see little mixers, and that can control what is your ears are doing. So what you can do in here, you see this little 1, 2, 3. You can select this and say I want it to be 4, and then when I turn it this way, you see the 4 that I selected are there. So I can take and control. Now I'm on snake 1. Let me change this to be my in-ear. So in-ear left and right. Oh, let's do in-ear left. That's done. That's good enough. So there I have selected in-ear left, which is what I have in my ear. And if I start turning myself down, I don't hear it in my ears anymore. I hear the other mic in my ears, but I don't hear that mic in my ears. So this is only going to affect what goes to my ears. Now turn it sideways, and I get all the mics, I get all the faders that I can select individually, but I can pick out which 4 are the most important for me. And when I turn it this way, my 4 most important ones are there. So this is really designed for an on-stage app for talent, especially if you're doing music. It's great. In this room, it actually works good because we use in-ears in here as well. And I don't know if you ever noticed, but I actually have things in my ears right here. They are skin tone, although not my skin tone, but they are. And I can control that as well. And anybody else that's in this room, I can give them their own channels, and they can pretty much pick what they want to hear and make their own mix that way. So that is the iPhone app. I've heard they're coming out with an Android app, although I have not seen it yet, and I can't say that I've looked for it in the last couple of weeks, so it could be out right now. But that is the X32 remote control. And some of the cool things about it, I can pretty much do a show myself without having anybody in the other room to do any kind of audio work for me. And through my in-ears, I can pretty much hear everything and control everything from right here. And it's just a nice way to do things remotely. The X32 is an awesome board, although I will say it's probably overkill for the average studio. One of the things that is nice about the X32, and this will, the cost of the X32 is about $3,400. I mean, sorry, $2,400 street price, US. And one of the reasons I went and got that was because if we do multi-track recording, the way we're doing it before is you had to have a bunch of mic pre's, a mic pre for every input you wanted. So if you're going to try to record like a 12 microphone drums kit, you need probably at least 16 mic pre's. And by the time you bought 2 decent 16 channel mic pre's, you pretty much would pay for an X32. The X32 can output via USB or FireWire every channel. So basically I use a Reaper. You start it up, you put it into record mode for all 32 channels, and it'll record to the hard drive everything that happens on every input on that board. And it can play it back through the same thing as well, but you can take that same data and bring it into Logic or Adobe Audition, whichever one you use, and edit it just as if you had a multi-track recorder set up. So it's awesome for that. They do have smaller versions of the same board now. They have boards that are half the size, and I don't think they're quite half the price, but they also have small rack mount units that would probably be enough for most studios. And with an iPad control or a computer control, you can pretty much create the scenes you need for your recording and just hit the recall button and bring it right up. All right, that's it for this week of the New Media Tech Show. We're going to keep going through different products that we use here. And we also wanted your input as to what you want to see. We'd love to know what you want to see, and we'll try to cover it. And also, we're going to start going through some workflow in the future, near future here, to show you what we do with shows when we're done with them and what it takes us to do. It takes us a little more work than some places because we're only using the A10. We're not using a TriCaster studio. New Media Tech is not recorded live. It is recorded when we have the time, so you can't come and watch us live. If you watch our Twitter stream, we'll tell you when we're going to do it a little bit ahead of time, generally. But we do release shows every week. We do have, you can go subscribe to us on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. That's our best way to know what we're doing and if we're doing it right. It just lets us know how many people we have following us. But we also put it out automatically through podcasts and other netcasts. iTunes is the best way if you want to watch us on video, or audio for that matter. And if you just audio, or on Stitcher. If you have a Roku box, we have the TechZen TV channel on the Roku. You can go sign up there and you can watch everything live there as well. And we do really appreciate feedback. And if you want to leave us a voice message, there is a phone number on the show page at techzen.tv for the New Media Show, or New Media Tech. And You can also, if you want to create a video, send it to like YouTube or somewhere like that and send us a link to it and we'll watch it, and you may just see that show up on a future show. All right, that's it for this week. We'll see you next week.